Welcome to episode 1 of the Jeremy Mullins Podcast. I am Jeremy Mullins. I'm here with my co-host, Jeffrey Reno. How are you tonight, brother?
I'm doing wonderful.
Wonderful. And you are traveling. So we were
I
doing
am.
this first podcast late in the evening. So I think this will be an interesting journey to say the least.
Absolutely. I'm not far from you either. Only like 2 hours.
I know, right? Hey, listen,
Yeah.
Florida's a big state. But hey, guys, I am super excited about this opportunity to start my own podcast. I've done many podcasts, either with different individuals or been guests of podcasts, and the reality is I've been putting it off, and I think we'll get into some of this education as we move along about not putting things off in life and not being scared, but that's kind of the reality of the podcast is I was scared to do it. And, I think that's, I see that a lot of times in people, when they're trying to make changes anyway, like people are scared to go out and make change, especially as adults, right? Like we don't want to fail as adults. As kids, it's easier to fall down and stumble or whatever and get right back up. But as adults, like we're afraid to fail. And I'll be 100% honest. Like I was afraid to start this podcast. Okay. But the good thing about it is I found you, and you have the capability and the skills to do everything that really was my fear, right? My fear is not the education. It's not the experience. It's not the topics. It's not finding the guests that we're going to bring on. It was literally like, how do I upload this stuff? How do I, create content to put on social media, to put on YouTube for that? But that is your specialty. So, take a minute, kind of, give the listeners a little bit of background on yourself, kind of how you and I came to know each other, and what we're going to look at doing here on the podcast.
Yep. So my background is almost purely in film. I am a documentary filmmaker as my civilian kind of career path. I own a production company based out of Lexington, Kentucky, and we filmed all the way from USC documentaries to Chick-fil-A commercials. And I kind of got into the podcasting game, actually editing for someone out in California. I was editing or producing 3 podcasts then. That's kind of where I learned how to do that. And then I've also kind of dual hatting in 10 years in the Army National Guard. And then we kind of connected, kind of working together in the Kentucky H2F program, where we kind of boosted that that whole organization in that H2F realm into the media aspect between social media, podcasting, and all that stuff. So then I brought in what I knew about podcasting. You brought what you knew in on the education side. And that's kind of where we connected first.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's sometimes some red tape when it comes to the services and the National Guard, and that's where we decided, you and I, to go out and do our own thing, and here we are. So, I know a lot of people that are going to download this in the beginning, know me. They're working with me. They've been a client of mine in the past. They have a relationship with me, so a lot of people know the background of myself. But for any new listeners that stumble on here, or that those individuals share this with you, I'm a strength and conditioning coach and registered dietitian by trade. Exercise nutrition's basically been, my lane my entire career. When I graduated, I did work a little bit in bariatric nutrition, but it was also bariatric / medical weight loss. And then from there, it's been, fitness and exercise. And, it's been CrossFit facilities. It's been teaching at the college level, moving on and working for the state of West Virginia as a contract dietitian, and then commissioned in as an officer into the Army National Guard, West Virginia Army National Guard, helping develop, continue to develop that program. As you mentioned, in Kentucky, we've developed probably one of the better H2F, which is holistic fitness programs, in the United States inside of the Kentucky Guard. And both of us and our team are proud of that. Now I'm a performance dietitian for First Form. I do work remote for them, and now we're living in Tallahassee, Florida. So married, lovely wife, 3 kids, and as I like to joke, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a soon-to-be 1-year-old. So that is why we are living here in Tallahassee now, to get some family help. So now our intent, guys, and I think that's very important. One thing I've learned, later in my life, is to give the intent out of the gate, right? So I mentioned this earlier. Our intent of the podcast is going to be to educate first and foremost, hopefully entertain with some maybe some dad jokes and some have some funny guests that are on. And I love to tell stories. You're going to meet some great people, whether that be other coaches that are into industry, maybe other business owners, bringing people on. And I'll tell personal stories of our relations. And I think that's important, for people to understand and see that a lot of times in life, it is about chance and about connections, no different than you and I, quote unquote, being brought together and being able to be put on this platform.
And for sure, and I think the way I have developed, even changing myself, like even connecting with you and just other people in general, I make the most change when I feel most comfortable and just relating with other people and being on the creative side, like developing different content, or whatever it may be. I'm able to connect and tell stories, and just that connection forms change in and of itself, like kind of the culture you're surrounding yourself in. So the more you're just connecting with other people that are like-minded, you're just going to see change kind of naturally happen.
Also, well, you just brought me to my first point. So what I want to discuss in this podcast today is, yes, a little bit of intro. We got that out of the way. And one of the things I'll add to that is, at this time, I think, in with First Form and the First Form Transformation Challenge, we run our 4 contests a year. And I think if I count like runner-ups and any prizes, we have won 31 times. And when I say 31 times, I mean my team that I coach and I produce, right? And, really I'm at the point of my career where I'm starting to coach other coaches, and that's the big driver behind this podcast. I want to be able to share my experience and share my education. And I think it's one thing that I've been really good at is to take nutrition education, break it down, and put it in simple terms that work, right? And this platform is going to give us the ability to do that. And, as I mentioned before, I look forward to bringing on guests that can educate and be specialists in their field. If I do not know something, I'll be the first one to say, hey, I don't know that, or this is what we see. And that's one thing that I would say, if you're looking for coaches out there and looking for people inside of the fitness industry, specifically, when we're talking about nutrition and wellness and fitness, there is very little absolutes, right? There are guidelines and there are starting points, and it is very difficult to speak in absolutes inside of this field. And that would be something I would always encourage you guys to. Okay. Now, with that being said, that's the reason we focus a lot on behavior change, right? Focusing on habits. And I'll be the first one to say that, when you look at where you're at right now, okay, you are a reflection of your last 30, 60, and 90 days. If you look at it, right, good or bad, what you've done in the last 90 days has put you where you're at, right? So if you sit and think about that, and in position, like, we don't have to go into details, but like the job that you currently have now, and that, getting that position to do what you're doing, you put yourself in it. That wasn't by chance. You put yourself in that position for the things that you've done over the course of 6 months, within our program, right?
Yeah. No, everything that I'm doing right now, the success I'm having is exactly, I can pinpoint it to the last 8 or literally 90 days to 120 days prior to joining. Yeah.
And what I like is, give you guys, and, Reno's more of IT guys. You can think, I don't want to say specialists, like, but IT and film and video, most of those guys and gals aren't what you think fitness people. But what he mentioned earlier, and it was cool to watch his adaptation, his change over that he got to know our team. It is a culture, right? And it is your surroundings. And when we look at behavior change, there's a couple of things that have stood out to me that I see a lot of people do to have success. And the top one, or the first one that we'll discuss, is changing your environment, putting people around you that do the same things that you're looking to do. Like, what are the behaviors you're looking to change to, right? Because then it becomes the norm inside of that group. And then talk about, being able to produce a bunch of winners. One of the things is, my education isn't much different than everyone else. But I think the big driving force is those individuals. We surround ourselves in this internal social media group, this community that's online, because we're all in different places, but they surround themselves by those like-minded people where, for example, walking 60 minutes a day is the norm, right? You are celebrated when you walk 60 minutes. It becomes something that you want to do because as humans, we want to fit in, right? We want to fit into our group and we want to be there. So, it just becomes easier to make that a habit, right? Because everyone around you is doing it and it's celebrated to be that habit.
Yeah. And I love the walking thing. And I'm getting into it even while traveling. I jump on the treadmill, but just the act of tagging you or tagging whoever, tagging this group, it provides this like accountability source. Like no one's going to text you, no one's going to call you and be like, "Hey, are you walking on the treadmill?" But if you don't post that and tag someone in it that you did it that day, like there is a little bit of accountability there to keep going and keep showing that like, hey, you are doing something that's making you better today than it was yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. We're doing that right now. I know by the time this airs, most people will be done with it. But in the month of December, we're doing, it's a habit challenge on social media. We started out with 3 miles a day, which is most people that hour walk, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to add to that. So, this Friday, I'll put on social media, okay, guys, we've been walking our hour a day or 30 or 3 miles a day. Let's add for breakfast at least 30 grams of protein for breakfast, right? And what I'm trying to do is build this momentum in this group of people online to show them that you can make great change in your life by small, subtle changes. A lot of people think to change in life, right? To be a millionaire, right? To be on paper, definition of a millionaire on paper is you have, $1 million worth of assets minus whatever your debt is, right? But a lot of people think that's very difficult to attain. But it's not. A lot of people who are millionaires in, United States specifically, didn't make a lot of money. They practiced good habits and saved, right? And those would be, that's what I love about finance, the same as the wellness industry, because a lot of the habits, a lot of things you have to do parallel each other, right? So by making these small changes, it builds up over time, right? A couple of the other things that we look at to make your habits, stick is, unfortunately or fortunately, we as humans want to change for either pain or we'll change for pleasure, right? So not change for pain, but if something is painful to us, we will make a change or make it pleasure. So I always try to tell people when you're trying to make it change a habit, make it something that is positive to you, that you feel good about it, right? And if it's something bad that you're doing, try to make it difficult where, I hate to say that's causing pain, but it is very frustrating, right? Let's just say, example I use, if someone was a smoker, it's like, okay, well, hey, leave your cigarettes in your car. And I'd be like, what do you mean? Because it's a pain and it's tedious to go outside, walk outside and get your cigarettes and have a smoke in the car, especially if you live up north, right? It's 0 degrees. You don't want to go out there 0 degrees weather. Yeah. So it's like, there's another little trick on how to do that. But, two with that would be identity. So I talked about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, putting people that are wanting to do the same thing to you as far as behaviors and be certain people, right? So changing your culture around you, okay, is important, because the 3 people that I would say that we want to be like or that we follow is our family, our close set of friends, and then I will term them heroes or people who want to be like, which makes sense, right? Like if you look at, and I don't know this answer, right? So I'm putting you on the spot, but who creates film that you would want to be like?
I mean, one that he's not even like a filmmaker, but like Peter McKinnon on it. He's a YouTuber, but he's created like masterpiece stuff. Like he's just, that's the one that jumps out to me.
So to be like him, you would look up, you would study, you would research what is his habits. That's the reason all of us are fascinated with people who are successful. What are their habits? What do they do day in and day out? Right. So, that's, we look at this and changing ourself. What I would encourage you to do, and this goes back to the pain and pleasure thing, to find pleasure in a habit, you really need to identify of what your goal is. So if you want to identify as, I want to be a healthy person, right? Or I want to be strong and lean, right? And that's the reason why I try to use these terms instead of fat loss, right? Because, the goal of fat loss, yes, we can have a specific goal of, I want to lose 60 pounds, I want to lose 80 pounds. But what I want someone to do is really think about what that identity is. I want to be a healthy person. I want to lead from the front for the people that I work with, my family, my kids. So I get pleasure out of workouts. I get pleasure out of doing the things that a lot of people might not, because they don't identify as being a healthy person or putting that identity on it. So that, to the listener, what I would encourage you to do to make these changes easier is identify in what you want to be. Right. And I'm not worried about the terminology on that. We all have different things, right? But identifying that, because then you find
it. So, and it's crazy that you're saying all this, because I'm reading this business book right now by Alex Hermosi. And he talked about everyone wants to have this big goal in life. And everyone, like, whether you pay monthly for it or yearly for it, or whatever your business goal is, your fitness goal, health goal is, everyone wants this like end goal. They don't think about the minor wins that come with it. But like, if your goal is 100 pounds of weight loss, but like, think about as you lose 10 pounds here, 10 pounds here, you're going to be able to go to play at the park with your kid and play basketball. Like, oh, that's a big win. You're going to be able to get on rides at the park. You're going to be able to do all these things. And then before you know it, you did lose your 100 pounds and you're at your dream goal. But think about all of the friends and the family and all the events you're able to attend. Those small wins are, if not just as bigger in my opinion, than the end goal. And that's
100%.
kind of what I see kind of you kind of do with everyone every single day. And that's what I hope that people listening to this right now understand, that the small wins are even more important than the end.
100%. And we're setting the ground with this, guys. We're going to have so many educational sessions, or at the set, man, I guess podcast sessions, series, what would it be called?
Yeah, podcast episodes.
Yeah, episodes. There we go. See, I
Yeah.
got you here for a reason. We'll have some
Yeah.
episodes that is the true education, right? You know, and I'll sum this up, you know, as we get through the habits. But yeah, like, you have to fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the process of high performance, right? And I say that because we are going to dive into a lot more things than just health and wellness. Yes, there'll be a lot of fat loss, muscle gain, performance here heavy, because that's my specialty. But we're also going to bring on people in finance, in spiritual, in different domains, where, once again, my ultimate goal with the podcast is to bring you guys to higher level of performance, right? So fall in love with the process. Think about being perfect in the process, not the results. And if you can do that, no matter what it is, you're going to have wonderful success. All right. As we're getting towards the end of this one, I do want to teach something, you know, to the listener that I have people to do. And it's a way that I build habits, right? So if we look at our ability to have success, right? Whatever the goal is, we set the goal, and then we look at what are the things I need to do to accomplish that goal. And we might not be doing those things in the beginning, but what I encourage people to do is to pick 3 action items that they want to work on. All right. Let's just say it is wellness based. We're going to drink more water. We're going to walk the 45 minutes to an hour each day. And we're going to track our food, right? Those are the 3 habits I want someone to start working on. Okay. We would write those down every single day. I'd get a notepad out. I'm old school. Listen, I'm mid 40s. I do notepads, legal pads. I'm still that. Like, I'm sure. What do you, Reno? You
Still
might
literally write on a green book in a hotel.
love it, right? So I encourage that. Write it down. Write those 3 things down every single day. And then a month from now, you be 100% honest with yourself, and you say, am I doing these without thinking about? And if that answer is yes, add 3 more things to the list. If you're doing 2 of them and you're not doing one of the others, leave that one on the list that you're struggling a little bit with, take the other 2 off, add 2 more on. You'll be surprised at how 3 habits, or how these 3 daily actions, build the habits, and you will produce results over time, right? So that's one thing that, you know, when you listen to this, guys, I would encourage you to do, is make those 3, right? And we'll dive into it a little bit more later on, but like, one of the things that you could do with this, for example, is, you know, what I like to call habit stacking. Okay. So let's just say, you know, Reno, you're struggling with water, right? And, you know, we're talking through it, and I'm like, okay, what's the big struggle? You're like, well, you know, I drink it after my workout, and usually with each meal or snack, but I'm not really drinking a lot in the morning. Right. So I'll be like, okay, I get it. You're from Kentucky, right? And I can make this joke. I'm from West Virginia originally. So smile. We're both from Appalachia. We can make this joke.
Yeah.
But I would ask him, you know, just to make sure, do you brush your teeth every morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we take a habit that someone has. Okay. He's already got the habit of brushing his teeth. It's easy for me to say, okay, hey, drink 16 ounces of water before you brush your teeth. Because then all we got to do is create our environment, have that 16-ounce bottle either in the fridge, sitting right beside our toothbrush, whatever the case is. Boom, got to drink it down, brush your teeth. That's easy to stack those habits. Once you know you have a good habit in place, you can add another one to it, in and around it. And that's an easy way to get these habits done to where you don't think about it. All of a sudden, you do that for a month, you don't think about it. You get up, you have your water, you brush your teeth, you move on about the day. And that's another way that we can look to stack those habits in as we're looking to progress, right? So my challenge to the listener is 2 things, okay? 1, pick 3 action items that you want to become habits. that will help you closer to your goal, no matter what that goal is, right? I got it. Everybody's got different goals, we're talking about health, wellness, finance, spiritual, whatever the case may be, right? Write down those habits and start of the next week, write them down every day. A month from now, if they become habits, remove them from the list, add 3 more in there. Second, sorry, go ahead.
No, so when they're writing them down, what happens if it comes back, if it sneaks up on them, they take it off the list, it sneaks back up on them, do they add it back to the list, or they just make sure they
100%,
mentally realize that it happened?
Yeah, because we see this a lot. I call it the pendulum swing, right? We get in programs, we do really well, we're on chart, we're doing well. Into the program comes, pendulum swings the other way, right? So if you see that habit is kind of pulled off, what I would do there is add it back to the list. Now, a couple of ways I do with this, is I allow them to maybe have more than 3. So if it's an old habit that just kind of fell off and they do it some of the time, then okay, it could be like a 4th one or a 5th one added to the list. But yeah, we'll just bring it back out, be intentful with it, have it on there, and once again, just continue to do it until you just do it without thinking about it, right? And that's where I'm at. And I say this, all the time. Like, I think the walking's really helped me, as far as just like maintain a healthy lean weight, right? Without tracking my macros all the time, and without being quote unquote dialed in, because it builds such a buffer, in that calorie expenditure, right? Versus in 5 years ago, 8 years ago, I didn't walk the hour a day. And that's something that, I do 90% of the time. There's times it does come up, right? I might not get the entire hour in, especially if like I'm going back to drill weekend, or, you're in the car for 12 hours, but it has become such a habit. I don't even think about it. It's just automatically like, okay, when am I going to do the walk today?
Yeah. I think I can be better at it, but definitely the habits have definitely changed the way I do things. Especially, I have it on a whiteboard right there in my office when I walk in. If I see something on that board that I know I haven't done yet, I'll even do it before even starting work. It definitely is a game changer for anyone listening.
100%. So remember, guys, the biggest things I've seen in people that I've worked with that have had great success is they do change their environment, right? And that environment could be the family, the friends that they're spending time with, the community that they're in, whether that be online or whether that be in person, and their house environment, right? Making things easier to change those behaviors. Second is that they pick their identity, right? Because once again, as humans, we're going to change because of pain or pleasure, right? So the more that we find happiness because we want to be X, right? We choose our identity of who we want to be, right? And then the habits that we do make us happy when we accomplish them. You're more likely to stick to them. That's probably the 2 biggest things that I've seen. And I also mentioned the habit stacking, where you can put the new habits you're trying to build with the old habits. A lot of this comes from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I would encourage everyone to read that book. Pick that book up. If you've not read it yet, read it. If you've got it on the shelf and you haven't read it, read it. If it's been a few years, reread it, right? It is such a great book to just follow and understand that if I do these small things day in and day out, I will produce good results, right? And the other one I like, Reno, is we talked about a bit of this offline, the Chop Wood Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf. We'll have to look that up, make sure they put it in the notes. But those are 2 of the biggest probably books that comes to like changing behavior and focusing in on what we mentioned earlier, falling in love with the process, falling in love with, and I say this all the time, simple is sexy. Focusing on the simple movements, if we're talking about exercise, the simple habits, if we're talking about wellness, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, and you will produce results. No different than retiring a millionaire, right? Saving that X percentage of money year after year over time, compounding interest, boom, next thing you know, you're debt-free, retirement, millionaire status, right? But you never made more than X, amount per year. Those are the things that I want people to focus on as we move forward.
And before you know it, it'll be like people are going to start asking you like, oh, how did you lose all that weight? Or how did you save all this money? Or how did you get that car? And it's just like, and you'll look back and you'll be like, actually, all I did was this. And it was going to be the simplest habit that you formed 30 years ago or 10 years ago.
Thing, but it takes the time, 100%. Well, guys and gals, I truly appreciate those that listen to this. I know, once again, we're gonna have a lot of clients I've worked with, a lot of clients I'm working with right now that listen to it. I know we'll get a lot of new people. They'll share it. A lot of new people will come on. I am super excited about this. Building this out, making it something educational. We're also going to have some full YouTube videos, especially like the education piece, where I can write on a whiteboard, explain it more of like a education format. And once again, we don't know the flow. We're going to aim, I hate to put it out there, right? But, we're going to aim for 2 to 3 podcasts to drop a week, keeping them constantly, on the same days, bringing on some guests, especially this first year, individuals that have had success inside the wellness journey, right? So people who have lost 40, 60, 80, 100 pounds, put on 20 pounds of muscle, whatever the case may be, but also, some other health coaches, because I think it's important to bring in, another set of ears, another set of eyes, another mouth, to come in and let you guys hear things different than how I say them, right? And yes, I feel like I'm good at certain things, especially like fat loss and wellness. But like if someone wanted to do bodybuilding, like I always refer that out to different colleagues, right? Because that's not necessarily my forte, right? I'll take on endurance, I'll take on powerlifting, that type of stuff, because those things, more things that I do. So we'll bring in a lot of guests that are in those aspects. And then Reno's going to have some the podcast that he technically leads. Will be fun. We're going to pull out articles, right? We're going to pull out some either social media articles or news articles and just kind of break it down, right? Because we understand that these are the things that you guys are seeing out there. We want to make sure that we're breaking the information down. You guys are getting the good information, and it's not something that is just out there, to quote persuade or to market.
Absolutely. Everything
Awesome,
you
guys.
said. Yep.
Thanks for listening. Until the next episode, we will talk to you guys soon.
See you.